Hello and welcome to the Pig and Whistle Tales from Azeroth. As always here at the Pig and Whistle Inn in Stormwind, I go for a variety of subjects with regards to World of Warcraft. So grab a bottle or a pint, sit back and enjoy. This episode will be going over a few things. We'll be going over the release of World of Warcraft Hardcore. We'll be going over 10.1.7 patch and then looking at a bit more speculation as to when Season 2 will end and that 10.2 patch will come out more than anything. But we'll get into the weekly news as always. Basil is your world boss for the week. He is located in Azure Spam. You have Zakali Elders alongside him and they are located in the Zaralak Caverns. World Quest bonus event is your event for this week, strangely enough, and this just gives you more reputation. So if you're looking to get any sort of reps from older factions, this is probably the best time to do so. We have Packed House as the brawl for this week. Packed House is essentially a 15 versus 15 in a arena, and it is a first one to lose all of their players loses. So yeah, it's just kind of a team deathmatch. You want to kind of be ranged for this, unless you want to jump in there as a tank and just sort of soak up every single bit of damage that you can. We have Fortified, Afflicted, and Raging as our mythic affixes for this week. Fortified, the non-boss enemies have increased damage and health, as well as their minions that they summon. That's it. Afflicted, essentially you get afflicted with a debuff. You can decurse this, dispel this, heal it. I'm not too quite sure on it, but essentially it is just a debuff. And Raging, when they get to 30%, you essentially, or they gain 100% damage increase. You want to kite them, soothe them, CC them away from your tank. Essentially you don't want them, you want them dead very quickly. You don't want to have them lingering about hitting your tank. Your healer will also not be too happy with that. We'll be looking at Thunder Fury this week, a classic in the World of Warcraft history. But before that, I would like to say a massive thank you, as always, to everyone who tunes in each and every week. And the tavern is growing with these tales that I tell. But I must ask for your support a little bit more. This podcast is not my full-time job. I do put in as much effort as I can without having to put any sort of content behind a paywall. With all of this said, you can support the show just down below. There is a link. It's from as little as $3 a month. And it would mean the world to me, and it would show your love for the support or the show a lot more so. Those who support have a chance to be featured in an episode or even shouted out. But a massive thank you to all, and let's get back into the episode. So Thunder Fury is our weapon of choice that we're going to look at the history of. This one's a bit smaller. It is probably the most iconic weapon ever in the game, maybe ever in any MMO, like potentially. It's obviously a reference or it's very much referenced in the sort of quote, did someone say, and then the name of the weapon, Thunder Fury, Blessed Blade of the Windseeker, and then, it just carries on from there. But essentially, I'm not too sure how that started, actually. But Thunder Fury is a legendary sword from vanilla World of Warcraft, and it is wielded by Prince Thunderon. He is a Prince of Air, and equipping it rewards you with the achievement Thunder Fury, Blessed Blade of the Windseeker, and it is the only legendary that is available to all classes, which is actually something I didn't know. That's the very first legendary as well, I'm pretty sure. I'm trying to think. Kind of. If you think of Sulphurus is in the same raid, but you also have the neck piece that is the legendary neck piece. I forget the name of it, something binding. But essentially, it's a neck piece that is shown in game. Only one person has ever gotten it, and before it was taken out of the loot table. So, there's a few ifs and buts if it's the very first legendary, but it is very much up there. It's one of the first 3, well, 2 mainly, but 3 if you're being very picky and technical about it. So the history of the blade, Ragnaros, who was in Molten Core, the final boss, and his lieutenants Gar and Baron Geddon defeated Thunderon who was the Prince of Air, after the first age of creation. It's kind of like a war, essentially. It's when all of the elementals were fighting one another. During the elemental sundering, that's it, Ragnaros was unable to fully consume Thunderon's essence, so he essentially forced what little remained of him into these 2 talismans, and gave it to one half each to the lieutenants, Gar and Baron Geddon. And these are where you can loot them off of. You need 2 binding of the Windseekers in order to get Thunder Fury, essentially. So you needed the drop rate from both of these to get this legendary. And somehow the talismans found their way into the hands of High Lord Demetrian, a follower of Thunderon. He recombined the talisman, but he was unable to release his master. Instead, he did the best he could. He crafted a blade to serve as a vessel for his master's essence. So Thunderon essentially upgraded from a little locket to a sword. It's an upgrade. It's better than nothing. In Cataclysm, you can find a NPC called Nick the Mountain. He can be seen wielding the blade. Now, in Blasted Lands, there's I'm not sure if it's Blasted Lands. It might be near Diamol, but I can't remember exactly. But essentially, there is a small place where there's hot steams, and it's kind of like a resort, like a beach resort, and it's got people who have loads of different sort of iconic things. There's even Thunder Fury, there's a Gordon Ramsay sort of NPC there, all of that. But the most notable thing is that you have to do a quest to for the there's a mail quest in Legion, and you have to go and deliver someone's mail. And this mail was something that they forgot to loot. And this loot was Invincible's Reigns. So you go to them and you give them the loot, but they already have it, and they just want you to delete it, essentially. So you get Invincible's Reigns, but you have to delete it. It's quite funny, I'm not going to lie. But essentially, it's just a place where all of these NPCs have, really cool bits of gear. In Legion, when the Urban Ring decided to resurrect Thunderon to replace the fallen, wind god? Wind elemental? Air elemental? That's it, I finally got there. The fallen air elemental Alakir, a shaman adventurer takes Thunder Fury. We are the shaman adventurer, by the way, from the corpse of its last wielder, a dwarf warrior called Ray, who died facing Ragemaw in Azuna, and bring it to Vortex Pinnacle. With the Heart of Skywall and the power of Thunder Fury, Thunderon is revived and wields the sword, the iconic sword, as the new Wind Lord. Ragemaw, I'm just double checking. It is a giant demon. It's a giant, fell beast demon, essentially. Nothing too crazy, and a lot of people die to these sort of beasts, these core hounds, essentially. But yeah, that's Thunder Fury in a nutshell. It's very iconic because whenever someone would get it, essentially the only line that was in trade chat was, did someone say Thunder Fury, Blessed Blade of the Windseeker? Oh my god, is that the iconic Thunder Fury, Blessed Blade of the Windseeker? Just because of how long the name is, I think it made for really good sort of spammable potential in trade chat, and this is what kind of made it one of the most iconic things in WoW. You have obviously stuff like Leroy Jenkins, you have other things, but Thunder Fury is definitely up there with it. But let's get into the main bulk of the episode. So, as we all know, for a little bit of time, they have been kind of playing around with the idea of WoW Hardcore. They've done PTRs and stuff, and they have gotten a release date. The Hardcore Realms will go live on the 24th of August, which is really good. Let me just double check. 24th, that's really weird. Okay, 24th is a Thursday, just 2 weeks' time. Just under 2 weeks' time from when this goes live. Really weird to throw it out on a Thursday, I'm not going to lie. I kind of usually thought it would be a Tuesday, the reset, but apparently not. Maybe they do WoW Era server realm resets on the Thursdays. Who knows? And essentially, what you can do is obviously create a character, and you're going to go about this without dying at all. You can group up. You can. I'm pretty sure you can send mail, if I do recall correctly. You can use the auction house and stuff, but essentially you do not want to die. There's a few things that you need to look into if you do manage to die. So not every hero will reach the finish line on their first attempt, or maybe even second attempt. I plan to make it on my first attempt, not gonna lie. I feel like I could easily do this. For those who have fallen along the way, there's a choice to be made on how to handle their newfound permanent death status. Linger on. If you have unfinished business in the hardcore realm, you may continue to exist in the game world as a ghost. This will allow you to communicate with your in-game friends, as well as pass on guild leadership to new, preferably alive, dead heroes make for poor leaders, guild members. Keep in mind that ghosts cannot complete quests, speak to living, or otherwise do most of anything other than haunt their local graveyards quietly and ponder what went wrong in their last moments of life in Azeroth. Makes sense. You shouldn't be able to res. Yes, 100%. Because people will just be like, oh no, I never died, find a way to cheat the system, that kind of deal. There was a way to cheat the system on PTR. You logged out in Orgrimmar or something as a ghost and you'd be rezzed, and there was different ways to cheat the system. So hopefully they've patched them out before these go live. Enter a new era. Maybe you've grown too attached to life, maybe your character had an unlucky encounter with Lord Kazakh after you made a wrong turn at the Blasted Lands. Maybe you just miscalculated how high that jump was, or perhaps your character hasn't died at all, but you've decided that you're looking for a more relaxed experience. No matter the reason, if you want to keep playing your recently departed character, or make sure your currently leveling character doesn't face a sudden mishap, you can utilize the free character transfer move and move any character to a non-hardcore classic era realm. You cannot move normal characters to hardcore classic. That cannot be stressed enough. You cannot do that. And this is a free service as well for those that die, because if people do get attached to a character, you can just simply move that character and carry on playing with it. Once the move is complete, the hero may resurrect as normal at the closest spirit healer, but the way back to hardcore realm will be closed to them permanently. There you go. Try again. Death, although permanent in classic hardcore realms, isn't the end. Every hero that meets their end leaves behind valuable lessons that the next hero will benefit from. Keep trying until you triumph and build on the lessons learned. I hope that they do some reward for this. Maybe they give a little buff at the end. I don't recall if they have, but I would like to see a little buff at the end just to say you've completed it. I suppose anyone on a hardcore realm hitting level 60 will just automatically be given that achievement or that status, because everyone on there's a hardcore player. So yeah, okay, I guess you don't need the actual buff. But yeah, these are sort of the few things that they've listed that you can do. Obviously, when you hit max level, or any time you want to, you can do a duel to the death. A duel to the death is what it sounds like. You actually die in this duel, and you can collect buffs. You can collect trinkets from how many people you've beaten in a duel. Essentially, yeah, it's really cool. It's a really cool feature, and I'll be very impressed to see if people get over 15, 20 ears if they're dueling at max level and stuff like that. Now let's move on to Fury of the Incarnates. Fury of the Incarnate PTR developer notes. Essentially, there's loads of stuff to go on through here. In terms of what do you call it? I've completely forgotten. Balance changes. That's it. But with Fury of the Incarnate, we're going to be looking at getting that. I believe it was September. I believe it was the 5th. Which will be really cool. It'll be really cool. But that means that we are a month more without getting Fury of the Incarnate. And that means that we are probably in 2 months away from having a complete season. So the end of season 2. I'll get into that in a bit. With Fury of the Incarnate, we get Dream Surges, which pop up throughout zones. The 4 original Dragon Isle zones, and essentially they just buff up the world quests there. They give better loot, better gear, all of that stuff. Essentially, a major waking portal, whatever it's called, will open as a group event every half an hour. Defeating it will require a large group of players and has a chance to reward raid level gear, which is really good. Probably just normal gear. Minor dreamwalking portals can be found scattered across the zone and can be defeated by solo players or small groups. Players in a Dream Surge will gain access to a variety of buffs that range from useful to powerful to chaotic, so kind of Torghast buffs, which is really cool. Every half hour, a new buff will be selected for the whole region, with the players themselves choosing which one by voting, technically. There's a couple of them. There's one, I tried them out on the PTR. They're decent buffs. They're decent buffs, especially for like leveling. There's like an XP one, I'm pretty sure. And why is that? Will be the initials. Oh, okay. No, don't worry about that. It just said Thaldraszus will be the initial zone active for the PTR, so I'm guessing that's just where they started. You'll also have the Eastern Kingdoms Cup. So soar through the Eastern Kingdom skies with the Dragon Rider racing event. Eastern Kingdoms Cup challenge 16 races across Eastern Kingdoms in normal, advanced, and reserve variations to earn Riders of Azeroth badges to exchange for rewards with Mazthra. That's the evoker who is in the PvP section, I believe. And you also have a few new things. We actually have a new Hallow's End, as well as a new Brewfest, if I'm not mistaken. Brewfest and something else. I'm completely lost now. What was it? What else is around this time? Yeah, Brewfest. You have Hallow's End. Maybe a Christmas one? I've yet to see, but I'm pretty sure the Christmas one will come in the next patch. It's probably a minor one. These are the two main ones. But Hallow's End, essentially, it's nothing new, but you can do... It's the Headless Horseman encounter, but you can put in a Mythic Plus affix for just yourself, by the way. This is not for the whole group. You can put these affixes just on primarily yourself. And that means that it's a bit more challenging. I wonder if it'll give you like a high drop chance for the mount or any specific items. I don't know. Maybe you can choose if there's like, if you get like 4 of these debuffs, you get an extra 1% drop chance on like a ring, or you get an extra 0.5% drop chance on a mount, you know, that kind of deal. It's all really cool. There's a lot of like tweaks and balance changes and stuff, way too many to go over. That would take me way too long. The biggest ones, the biggest changes are primarily to do with Resto Druid and Mistweaver Monk in the case of their like mana regen. So they have a couple ways to regen mana. Essentially, Druid is by going into different forms and casting different spells, and the Monk is by drinking some tea, as per usual. But yeah, what this leads into is essentially we get it 5th of September. That's how many weeks? 3 weeks? 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, 3.5 weeks from when this podcast goes live. Well, it's about 3.5 weeks. And then primarily, we've kind of been waiting for this patch for a month, maybe, month and a half. You'd expect 10.2 to be probably around the same time in terms of getting it released. I need to go back and have a look at the chart, whatever it's called, the roadmap. That's it. That's the one. But I believe that like it's going to be released probably around October time. If they've already done stuff for Hallow's End and Brewfest in this patch, I would imagine that they don't need to look to get it out before November. Now, a lot of people would like it to be in sort of November or October time. October, November, and then that way they can release it kind of after New Year's, the like 10.2, mate. No, not 10.2, 10.2.5, 10.2.5. Yes, that's it. Like they can probably do that. I'm just trying to think. Okay, no, in fairness, they have BlizzCon as well. So you got this releasing 5th of September, 6th if you are EU. And then October time, you have, a few things here and there, but I would imagine they announced the release date of 10.2 during BlizzCon, and it'll be like next week or something. It'll be like the 7th of November, and they'll do that alongside the latest expansion, which will be really cool. That'll be my guess. So you're looking at like a couple more months of season 2, which isn't too bad. They are churning out content like really well, and in terms of like actual expansion stuff to do, this is one of the best expansions, possibly the best of all time. That is very much up for debate at the moment. So the fact that they're not getting seasons out very quickly isn't the worst thing, in my honest opinion. But at the same time, I myself only mainly do PvP, and it's kind of the worst thing that you can get, where they're like not constantly churning out like seasons. But on the other hand, you can also look at it in terms of like, okay, they won't release it for a couple more months, which means that MMR for PvP currently has time to actually, scale up, because it is very low right now. It's still probably around 2.1 in terms of like what people, or like 300 below what people would want, 300, 400 maybe, stuff like that. So, there's many different ways to look at it, but I would say that towards the end of this season, where the PvP is actually going to have a decent chance at getting what they want, Glad, 1800, even 1500, stuff like that. But yeah, the season might be a bit long, but the amount of content that they're churning out elsewhere is fine, but they're churning out so much content in other areas of WoW that they do kind of neglect. I say they neglect PvP. We do get a lot of PvP, like balance changes. They actually have been doing really well for like just constantly changing up the meta and changing classes, making sure that nothing's too good for too long, that kind of deal. But we don't get much more different. Okay, what I mean by this is PvEers in this patch are going to get some Dream Surges to gear up their ults and stuff like that, and this actively affects their ult leveling because they can do the like Dream Surge like voting system to get more XP zone wide, that kind of deal. Whereas PvPers, no new battleground, no new arenas. Every week it's just MMR goes up by a bit. It's tough. It's real tough because we haven't. It's really tough to get actual content for PvPers out, and the best that they can do at the moment is the balance changes. And don't get me wrong, the balance changes are amazing. I'm loving that they're churning out so many, and they're doing a really good job at it. I do have to say that, but it just feels like it's rough because they get constant stuff that's new. Along with these like balance changes, PvEers, whereas PvPers don't get many things that are new compared to the PvP or PvEers, if any we get actually. But we still get the balance changes, which is really nice. But that is it for this episode. Thank you all very much for listening. As always, do check out all of the socials down below. Support the show down below as well. All of the links are there. Twitch, YouTube, TikTok. The support link is down there as well. Thank you all very much for listening, and go with Valor, friend. Goodbye all.